What's going on, SixPackAbs.com? It's Thomas DeLauer, your lead nutritionist and your lead trainer here. And today I want to give you the breakdown of the 3 phases of detoxification. This isn't some kind of hoity-toity video just talking about basic detoxing. What I want to do here is I want to help you understand the enzymatic processes that occur within our bodies whenever our bodies have to break down any toxin, no matter how big nor small. Now, hey, if you haven't already, I do want to make sure that you check out my green detox, which is down below in the description. Anyway, let's get down to the science here. So we have 3 phases of detoxification. The first phase utilizes transformation enzymes. What this means is enzymes that are going to ultimately react with the toxins to make them a little less reactive, make them a little less dangerous. Okay, then we move into phase 2. This is the binding or conjugation phase. This is where we're using other enzymes and other processes within the body to ultimately make it so that these toxins are even less reactive and bound together and structured in such a way that we can eliminate them easier. Then phase 3 is the elimination phase. Phase 3 is where we actually process them in the intestinal tract and excrete them out of the body. Now, up until now, a lot of you have probably thought that detoxification just isn't a real thing. It's something that's just made up by marketing companies and made up by supplement companies to sell products. Well, the reality is that detoxification is an inherent thing that we have a natural ability to do. If we couldn't detox, we'd die pretty quickly. So I want to help you understand how this is actually working in the body so that you can take care of yourself and eat the right foods to be able to help support your body's ability to detox. So let's start with phase 1. So phase 1 is your first line of defense. When you have any kind of toxin built up in your body, it can either be water soluble or it can be fat soluble. And a lot of times the water soluble toxins are processed relatively fast and they get excreted relatively fast. But a lot of toxins also end up clinging to our fat cells. And this means that we have to have a method to break them down even more. So the first step with phase 1 is utilizing enzymes that take these toxins that are bound to fat and make them more water soluble so that our body can process them. Now, there's a classification of enzymes known as cytochrome P450s. These cytochrome P450s, it is their job to make toxins more water soluble. So what they're doing is they're going around and they're touching these toxins and turning them into free radicals. Now, up until now, you've probably thought that free radicals are all bad. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not necessarily a good thing, but they're a heck of a lot better than a pure poison or a toxin is. For example, when you consume a toxin, it's neutralized and turned into a free radical, which, although not necessarily good, it's at least something that your body can manage as we get into phase 2. So phase 1 is utilizing specific enzymes to turn toxins and poisons into manageable free radicals. Okay, so now let's move into phase 2 of detoxification. Phase 2 is the conjugation phase, where we use specific enzymes and specific compounds in the body to take what is left over from phase 1 detoxification and process it even more. So remember how I told you that phase 1 is all about turning toxins into free radicals? Well, phase 2 is about turning those free radicals into something that is packaged up and able to be delivered outside of the body. Now, additionally, phase 1 leaves some remnants behind. Believe it or not, as a result of phase 1 detoxification, some things are broken down so much that they become more reactive and more toxic. And it's the job of phase 2 enzymes to take those more reactive byproducts from phase 1 and turn them into something more manageable. So phase 2 is very, very critical. Without phase 2, you're left with a lot of free radicals and you're left with even stronger toxins than you were before. It's like this necessary evil that your body has to go through. It's like you have to create more toxins before you can ever get rid of them. You're taking a packaged up toxin and you're breaking it down into smaller, individual, more potent toxins and then neutralizing those and breaking them down as much as you can. Now, phase 2 utilizes a lot of what's called glutathione. And glutathione travels around and it has what's called a spare electron. I'm going to save you a lot of the details here, but basically what glutathione does is it takes this electron and it donates it to a reactive oxygen species, which is known as a free radical. So by donating this electron, it neutralizes it. It's like putting baking soda on something to neutralize it, or it's like using a fire extinguisher or putting water on fire. It's just neutralizing it, and it donates part of itself in order to do so. But again, this is the phase where a lot of people fall short because they're not getting the right nutrients. And I'll help you understand why that's dangerous in just a second. So we move into phase 3. Phase 3 detoxification is the thing that everyone thinks is just what happens in the first place. They forget all about phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3 is the elimination phase. Phase 3 is utilizing transport proteins and specific molecules to deliver these toxins and deliver the free radicals that have been packaged up and get them out of the body. So what ends up happening is once glutathione has actually neutralized these free radicals, they are then packaged up and sent down to the small intestine and put in the bile. Now, bile is very important when it comes down to getting rid of anything that's fat soluble that shouldn't be there. It's also very important when it comes down to digestion. So if you don't have an overall healthy digestive system, or your bile isn't healthy, or your bile production isn't healthy, you're going to have a hard time with phase 3. You see, it uses a specific kind of transport protein known as an ABC transporter. And what this stands for is ATP binding cassette transporters. And what they do is they collect all these toxins and free radicals and move them across a cell membrane so that the bile can just excrete them out of the body. ATP is energy. So when we talk about ATP binding cassette transporters, we're talking about a detoxification process that specifically requires energy. Okay, so what I mean by that is whenever you're detoxifying, whenever you're going through a detoxification process, it takes energy. It's not like you can just magically do it. It takes a lot of work. And even the specific transport protein that is responsible for removing the toxin in the first place literally requires direct ATP, direct energy to move the toxin out of the cell. So it's not as easy of a process as you think, which is exactly why we have to support it. Now, like I was saying before, if your phase 2 detoxification is not working, the part where you're neutralizing free radicals, what ends up happening is then you're ending up dumping larger particles directly into the bile. So you kind of skip phase 2. You go from phase 1 directly into phase 3, which basically means that the toxins that aren't fully broken down are delivered right into your intestinal tract, not ready to be excreted, but they end up getting reabsorbed because they're not able to be fully excreted yet. There's still a viable toxin that reabsorbs back into the body and causes more issues. So that phase 2 is very important. But the good news is that the phase 2 is the part that you can support with a healthy diet. It's the part that you can support with getting the right amount of greens, getting the right amount of antioxidants in. Because remember, we're creating free radicals. We're creating oxidative stress from the toxins. So now it's the job of the antioxidants that we consume to neutralize those free radicals. So we have an element of control within this 3-step process. And if we don't exercise that control, we end up with a very, very big problem. And that's exactly why we're always pushing to consume X amount of leafy greens and consume a certain amount of antioxidants. That is why it's so critical. But anyhow, I hope this clears some things up and gives you an understanding of the proteins and the enzymes that are required when it comes down to detoxification. It's not as simple as just taking a magic pill. It really is a process. And when it comes down to it, the abundance of life is all about supporting our own natural ability to do things. And that's all that supplements are, a natural ability to supplement what our body is already capable of doing. So as always, keep it locked in here on SixPackAbs.com, and I'll see you in the next video.